Welcome to Milwaukee Panther Women's Basketball Media Day as the 2025-26 season upon us, and being joined by head coach Kyle Rechlicz. My name is Matt Menzel. She's back now for season number 14, and we talk about this every year, but when you think back about your time here with Milwaukee, how do you feel like you've grown as a coach?
Well, I've had to change as the generations have changed. It's a very different type of player now, too, than when we started. But I think some of my alumni would say I've gotten a lot nicer. And we kind of joke about that now when I talk to some of them. But, there's a lot that hasn't changed, too. I still very much care about our athletes, and I want them to be successful, after college. So we focus a lot on that student, person, and athlete side just as much as we did in year one. And I'm just trying to, navigate, this new generation and kind of figure out the best way to coach them and build them up as women.
Let me ask you about that. In this day and age with the transfer portal, rosters are changing on a regular basis. Do you have to change your system at all to adapt to the type of players you bring in?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think for us right now, we're looking at bringing in a lot more younger type players, or players that are coming from junior college. And that's okay. There's this freshness to it. They're incredibly hard workers, especially the people that we brought in this year. And they're in this growth stage. And so there's a lot more of the skill building and the details. And, whereas some of the past teams, like the teams kind of ran themselves a little bit more because we had some upperclassmen that have been in the program for a long time. There's a lot more teaching that's involved in this. And I'm really loving it. I love, just watching them get better every single day. It's like this, progression piece. And so that's been a really, really fun journey. But I think that, in mid-major basketball, I think you're going to see a lot of that.
Outside of teaching, and you look at this roster, about 7 newcomers, so about half the roster brand new. How much time do you spend in just building the chemistry of this team?
That was a huge part of our summer and preseason. I mean, we really spent a lot of time doing stuff together. We went paintballing as a group because we want to build our toughness as well. So it was a combination of that. The girls went to Summerfest. We went to a Brewers game. We did a lot of those types of things. And then the leadership team, our kind of captain group, they really put a lot of time into that too. They were getting the team together a lot on the weekends and doing dinners and, going out to Bel Air and doing some of that kind of stuff. So this team is very close. They're really connected, and you can really see that with even the energy that's on the bench. It's genuine.
Let's talk about the players that are back, and you have a player like Jada Williams, obviously Peyton Rechlicz. You have, Grace Lohman, Sophia Rampula among those that are back, Izzy Pugh, Jory Buwalda. What are the expectations for those that are back that have been with this program already in the past?
Yeah, right now, a number of them are starting for us. And I think it's more because of this just calmness, to the group. They understand, how we want to play. There's a little bit of, maturity within that group. And they've played together, a lot. So it's nice to kind of see that core group really working together. And, the best part about that group is no one feels the need to be the hero. It's just it's a group that's really moving the basketball from one side of the court to the other. We're getting a lot more reversals. And we have a lot of them are really good shooters, to be honest with you. Jada Williams has gotten a lot better at really getting consistent from three. Peyton's been shooting the ball really well. Jory, I mean, you name it, every single one of those players that you just named can shoot the basketball. So it's really nice to have a core group that can really extend the court and open up the paint a little bit.
You look at players like Peyton Rechlicz, but also a Grace Lohman. How has their voice has been developing? Obviously, they take on a bigger role even from a leadership standpoint.
Yeah. Both of them, they were selected, with the last year's group to leadership team, and then we added a few more pieces with Jada Williams and Jory Buwalda, there towards as we got into the summer and stuff like that. But, they've really been stepping up in terms of talking about culture. And I think that's a big piece, what's expected every day in practice, what's expected on the bench, what's expected when we travel. They're just kind of that voice of, maturity, and we've done this, and this is kind of what we do at Milwaukee. And they're two players that you obviously can really trust. Actually, all four of them are players that you can really trust. And so it's easy for me to take a step back and let them lead.
Look at two players like Kendall Barnes, CeCe McNair with the program last year, but red shirts. So now what can we expect from them on the court?
Yeah, I think they're finding their footing. They both are incredible workers, and CC brings this physicalness in the paint where Kendall brings this amazing athleticism on the primer. But playing in some of their first games here as of late, there's they're rushing a little bit, and you got to learn how to kind of slow down a little bit and take in the moments. And but they're players, I think, as the season goes on, you're going to see more and more of them as we get into later games and into conference for sure.
What are you seeing with the newcomers, the freshmen, but also the transfers?
Yeah, this is the deepest roster that we've kind of had in a long time. There really is not a cutoff. And that's where, as a coach, it's really fun. And I've talked to all of them about it. There's going to be games that somebody might play 20 minutes, and the next game they might play 2 because someone else is just playing better. We really feel like we can find the right fit within each individual game. We've got great shooters that have come in. We've got great attack players that have come in, some really great defenders, and so we can really balance the game out based off of what we need.
So do you have a pretty good sense at this point of what that rotation may look like? Obviously, you go deep, but do you have a sense of who might be 6, 7, 8 on that bench?
No. And that's okay. I think they're still competing for positions, and I think that's really great, actually. Robert Morris last year, they were kind of in a similar position. Watching them, their rotations would change from game to game based off of who was playing kind of well in practices, and I could see us going with that for a while until we kind of, see who's, kind of filling into those spots. All of them have had great moments. All of them have had great sparks. And so, I think that makes it even more fun to coach because we do have people that we can rely on the bench that are going to bring us something day in and day out.
You've had models in the past. Is there a team model for this season?
There is. It is FIWB, but I can't tell you what that means.
Is that going to be, we'll find out when the season starts or later time?
I think later time we'll find out.
I'll try to guess off the air, but look at the schedule for a second too, because you no stranger to scheduling tough non-conference competition. Again, the non-conference schedule, there's some who's who in there as well. But what was the philosophy behind how you went about scheduling this year?
Yeah, I wanted to challenge us in the non-conference with finding teams that are kind of in that, 100 to 200 range. I think that, you look at where the top of our conference is at, and you're finding a lot of teams that, the top of our league is usually falling just under 100 in the net. Obviously you'll get those spark teams that are a little bit higher, and then you'll find a lot of teams that are in that 150 range. And so the more teams we can play that in the non-con, the better it's going to be for us. So we really tried to kind of schedule within that, but scheduling has just become really hard because you never know what the roster. I mean, you're basing your scheduling off of what last year's roster is, and then all of a sudden, bam, it's a whole new roster. So you really have no idea when you're going into it. But we wanted to play a little bit more local, along with the tournament out in Pacific, out in California. But other than that, we wanted to play some local teams and kind of get back to who we are.
Let's wrap it up by asking, what do you see as being the big question marks going into these first few weeks of this season?
Yeah, I think for us, we've got a very young point guard group, and, I've actually taken the point guards this year as a position coach, because they are so young and we're just trying to get them to establish their presence on the court. They're both very talented, and they both bring something very different to the table, but they also haven't commanded a Division I team. So I'm trying to get them to find their voice and trying to get their confidence underneath them. And so I think that's an unknown piece right now, but I'm excited to see how that progresses as we move through the season. And then for us, it's just kind of like you said, figuring out that depth, kind of like getting a depth roster. I think we've got, a core 6 or 7 that we know for sure, and it's coming up with who's at 8, 9, 10.
Well, Coach, as always, all the best this season. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.